Ladies and gents, it's Monday. It's a new week. It's time for a fresh start. Forget all of the chaos, despair, depression, and hopelessness that took place last week. That week is never going to come again. It's time for a clean slate, guys. Let's see what the papers are saying this morning. UK attacks EU double standards on migrants. Oh, for the love of... Indeed, this is a story that the UK government are attacking the European Union for their stance in support of Ireland, who may or may not wish to send asylum seekers who are now rumoured to be rerouting to Ireland back to the United Kingdom. Right. Okay, and is this in other newspapers as well? Oh yes, the Irish seek to return migrants fleeing the UK, says the Times. Right, so let's just try and make sense of this, shall we? The Rwanda bill, which actually became law last week, is now supposedly such a deterrent that asylum seekers, refugees, who were previously looking to set up shop in the United Kingdom are now going to Ireland. That is what we're saying. How? How are they going to Ireland? Are you seriously telling me people are getting into small boats in France and sailing all the way to Ireland? Is that what we're saying now? Like, if the journey from France to England weren't treacherous, dangerous, murderous enough, you're seriously telling me that these people and the people traffickers are doubling, tripling, maybe quadrupling the chances of these people dying at sea with a significantly longer journey, rather than face the near 0% chance of them actually being selected as one of the people who are going to go to Rwanda? Is that what we're saying? Right, okay. Well, no, not necessarily. We might not be talking about upcoming small boats. We might be talking about people who are already in the United Kingdom, who think they might get selected to be sent off to Rwanda, and now they are panicking and trying to make their way to Ireland. Right. So now what we're saying is that people who have already made the crossing, who the Home Office have completely lost contact with, those people have found their way all the way up to Liverpool and then got themselves into Northern Ireland with no identification. What are they doing? Boarding a ferry with no passport, no driving licence? Or are we suggesting there's another fleet of small boats up in Liverpool now of clandestine, stowaway vehicles just waiting to transport them? The far-fetched nature of this is probably why nobody is saying how many of these refugees we're actually talking about. You know, I mean, if we're talking about reports of the first 80 or first 30 asylum seekers who were about to be flown off to Rwanda, how many of those 30 are actually going to make that trip all the way over to Ireland? You know, how many is it? What, like 5? 8? So yeah, I don't know, there seems to be a lot of question marks, a lot of uncertainty around this between Ireland and the UK. How many people? Where are they coming from? Is it small boats? Are they actually travelling into... But fortunately, I'm confident our Home Secretary, James Cleverly, could probably clear this matter up with the Irish Premier any minute now. Except, of course, James Cleverly has cancelled the meeting. Yeah, of course he has. Of course he has. Hooray for diplomacy. I mean, really what this all comes down to, guys, is this weird idea that first world nations should be able to return refugees to the last safe country they were in. Britain, for example, wants to be able to kick them back to France, but they can't because the agreement that we had that allowed us to do that with some of them, that broke down after Brexit. Now, Ireland wants to be able to do a similar thing with UK refugees. Like if they were already in the UK and then they come to Ireland, Ireland want to be able to kick them back to Britain. But because Ireland and France are both member states of the European Union, the UK are saying, we won't let you kick them back to us unless your counterpart, France, allow us to kick them back to them. And stuck in between all of this diplomacy and politics are desperate refugees just trying to escape war and famine and look for a better life for their kids. I mean, imagine how weird it must be to be an asylum seeker and to land in the UK and just be like, look, I've left this war, I've left this persecution, oppression. I've heard that the UK is a welcoming country with a history of being very compassionate to people in my position. Then you arrive in Britain and you get stuck in this sort of purgatorial, stateless state. You've been declared a refugee, but the backlog's so big they can't give you any, definitive time that you're actually going to be declared a citizen of the UK. They won't give you a work permit because God forbid you take away a job from one of the witless, unemployable supporters of the Reform Party. You get stuffed on a plague barge or in that processing centre where the guy threw the Molotov cocktail over the fence. Now you got the prospect of maybe I'll be just unlucky enough to be sent off to Rwanda. You got all this uncertainty, all of this cruelty. You're just stuck in the middle of this crossfire hurricane of mean-spirited sociopathy. And who's pulling the strings? Right at the top, it's politicians like Rishi Sunak, James Cleverly, right on the cusp of local elections, being extra cruel to asylum seekers and immigrants just because they want to appeal to an ever-shrinking, quickly dying right vote. Over to the Eye now, who suggest that the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is resisting calls to announce the general election. This is a story, of course, that our Prime Minister Rishi Sunak was heavily rumoured on Thursday and Friday last week that he's about to announce the general election date today. You know, there's a lot of us who thought dead set for May. It was going to happen in May. Then there was a lot of people who were like, oh, it's going to be a summer election now. It's going to happen in July. Meanwhile, people like Ian Dunt are saying, why would he, like, this never happens. Prime Ministers never call snap elections when they're like 20 to 25 points behind. It's just not going to happen. Meanwhile, there's a lot of us who are thinking the local elections, which are about to take place this Thursday, don't forget your passport and don't forget to tactically vote. Anyway, there's a lot of us who are thinking, you know, the local elections are probably going to go very badly for the Tories. And so after that, Sunak may not be able to resist all the pressures from different quarters of his party pushing him to finally announce the election. Of course, for many of us in the journo-political sphere, when he announces the general election is going to take place is largely moot. Most people have already decided who they want to vote for. Much of the conversation in the Tory press is about who is going to succeed Rishi Sunak. You know, they may claim that the campaign hasn't started really in earnest, but all of the policies that they've announced recently, like the NI tax cut, the Rwanda stuff, none of it has moved the dial in any discernible way. I mean, in order to win this general election, upcoming, now, Rishi Sunak would have to magic economic growth, which he appears manifestly unable to do. He'd have to almost instantly vastly improve public services that he's ideologically opposed to, and realistically pull Madeleine McCann out of a canvas bag, which leaves Rishi Sunak very much in sort of dead man walking territory, doesn't it? And not dissimilar to a sociopathic serial killer who would literally be a dead man walking in a prison on a death penalty. The general election is sort of tantamount to where the victims are buried. You know, it's like the last piece of power that he has. You know, it's like sitting the killer down and then going, all right, look, we've caught you. There's no getting out of this. You may as well meet your maker having righted a wrong, right? So just tell us where the women are buried. And the guy would be like, no, because that's my last piece of power. That is exactly like Rishi Sunak at this point. He's lost everything. He's got subsets of his own party plotting against him. He's 20 to 25 points down. Donors have deserted him. The right-wing press are talking about who's going to succeed him. The last piece of power he has is being able to withhold that date and go, no, I'll tell you when I'm ready. Now, I don't want you guys to get it twisted. He does still have some supporters. Far-fetched though it may seem, and despite Brexit's decimating effect on agriculture and the rural heartlands, not to mention the environmental cost of dumping literally billions of litres of sewage all through their lakes and rivers, it seems some quarters of the farming community are still vociferously opposed to Labour. Which is a bit like, have you guys seen what they've done to you, what they've done to your industry? Have you smelt the river over there? Are any of you able to sell your produce to Europe anymore? Are any of you making any money? I don't know, man. It just makes it bewildering, like how these people could still be campaigning to vote Tory in the current climate. I don't know, maybe a diet of sewage, water and scurvy is enough to send you batshit. I mean, the cliche is always to say that these people are like turkeys voting for Christmas. Though personally, as a guy who likes to put some distance between himself and cliche, and as a well-documented lover of language, I like to think of them not so much as turkeys vote for Christmas, more like the women who gushed and wrote love letters to Ted Bundy in the middle of his trial for the kidnap and violent murders of several women. Guys, that's it for this one. Do you think Rishi Sunak is going to announce the election soon? Do you think the Rwanda policy is deterring refugees and they are actually genuinely, legitimately going to Ireland? Finally, would you like to join my Patreon or my YouTube community? There's a link to both in the description below. I've got to go.